Morning, Chris. How you doing today?
Hi, Ron. Doing great. How about yourself?
Couldn't complain. Man, it's a great day. Love today. We're talking about another HIPAA topic. And it doesn't necessarily have to be HIPAA. This one's kind of a fun one. We're talking more about UI UX when it comes to medical websites with regards to a doctor, surgeon, locator, different things like that. That's something that's been very important. I remember when I started here, 11 plus years ago now, we did a really big, huge locator for the University of Utah Medical Behavioral Center. And I remember looking at that locator, and I'll see if I can find a screenshot. I'll pop it up on the screen here if I do when I do the video. But it was really cool because it had so many different functions where I could go in and say, I want to find a doctor that specializes in this within 25 miles of this, and they have this specialty or this. It had so many different filters. I'd never at the time, it's a long time ago, seen such a robust and complex locator. We do these locators on all our sites, and we seem to do a lot of these lately, don't we?
We do. And one of the really interesting things about, just as a user, what I want to experience is I want to be able to visually understand something very rapidly. And it's more of a subconscious demand as a user nowadays than anything, right? I know that if I go use this site from this enterprise group or this large organization, I have a great experience. I don't really recognize why. But one of the reasons why, just for our purposes, talking with business owners, marketing leaders, executives, technical minds who are listening to this, it's substantially because we are intuitively allowing the user to get all the information they need very rapidly. And we want it to be very self-service. And so having the information displayed on a locator or a map view, some kind of a visual indicator that I can quickly filter and search, this is an extremely powerful representation of the data and sort of the life cycle that I'm going through whenever I'm analyzing, do I want to do this surgery or do I want to get an appointment for this prescription? Do I have to actually get an appointment in person? That's frustrating. And then it's like, okay, insert here with, they're not that far away and I can see the hours and the ratings. These are some of the things that people are looking for in the process. So I agree, Ron, this is coming up more and more often. And it's a really powerful mechanism for enabling the user to sort of get past the barrier of going from an online or a mobile transaction to an in-person part of that workflow, right?
Yeah. So today I'm going to change things up a little bit. Let's throw the agenda and let's go evaluate three. And we don't necessarily evaluate or audit. This is more of a showcasing three different locators that we've done, right? One, and it's not like good, better, best, but it's kind of like relatively simple, a little more complex, and then we'll flip it over and go to an mHealth, right? We'll go to a mobile health app where we can actually show a very integrated back-end process that adds a lot more to a locator than just location. It's UI and UX, right? The experience and being able to follow up on the information that they do. So the first one I want to do is, this is a site that we designed a few years ago. It's gone through an acquisition at cervicaldisc.com. This is a company we've been working with now for, longer than when I got here. I know we did this site just a few years ago, but we've probably done about 14 different sites for this company. And these guys design and build medical devices for spinal and neck implants, right? Cervical and spinal implants, thoracic, they call it. So this one for cervicaldisc.com is a great site. It talks about the site. It's got clinical results. It's got a lot of different things. And it's even got a little survey. Am I a candidate? And if you're a candidate, then find a surgeon, right? Which surgeon locator up here and down here. So I'm going to go in and find a surgeon. So this is a simple locator. And it just says, hey, if you want to find a surgeon near you, and we've added in the ability to search by zip code, last name, or state. Well, I'm here in Texas. Texas is big. If you don't know, when I moved here to Texas, I dropped down from Albuquerque, I hit El Paso, and I went, I'm already here. I'm almost home. And it was 10 hours to get from El Paso just to Austin. So And Austin is only 2/3 of the way across the state. So it is really big. So I don't want to do that. I'm going to enter my home zip code, which happens to be 78613, and I want somebody relatively close within 25 miles of my house. So I'm going to click find surgeons, and it'll go through and look for some surgeons. And if the surgeon, when they signed up, you can see here, get directions. So I can see them all on the map, right? So I live right up here somewhere, right in North Austin. And so here's a bunch of doctors all around Austin and up into Round Rock, North Austin. And you can see here, this will actually take to some more information. If they provided a link to their website, if they have their phone number, so I can call them directly if I want to get directions. So any of the additional helpful information, you can see we kind of added to the tile so that when I find a doctor, if I want to see more information, I can click on James Smith and go in, and it'll go look for information specifically about him. He happens to have multiple locations. It shows both locations. It shows mappings directly to his locations and shows where they are. Obviously, I live up here in North Austin, so this is great for me. So I would select location number 1, and that would be the one that I would use, right? And then I can map that location. This ended up finding the doctor, and I can get directions. So very simple surgeon locator. Did you want to comment on any of the development, any cost, any difficulty of these types of locators for our clients or people that are listening in today?
Yeah, I would say just in general, something like this is pretty commoditized and standard. One of the biggest things is getting access to the data. In particular, anything that you want to sort of decorate the record with that's beyond public information, and then a way to keep that updated. Even that is pretty easy to do for the level of complexity that we're looking at here, where we're basically just using a standard functionality of some kind of a radius-based search, typically, or a region that we're searching against. There may be filters that we add to this to make it a little bit more sophisticated as far as filtering out the list, and then providing additional fields of data for the record itself, for the caregiver in this case. But generally speaking, this type of functionality is very, very commoditized. So it's not going to take a lot of time, which is really nice, because if you're considering putting something like this into your user's experience, or at least augmenting their sort of experience so they can get this information, it would be a low to medium level of effort typically. Depends on how much you want to do with it. But this type of functionality is pretty off the shelf in general. So
yeah,
hopefully that helps.
So great tee up for me. Thank you. You just talked about the more sophisticated additional filters and stuff. Let's go take a look at that. So let's look at our second example. So this is Northwest Community Healthcare. This is another one that we designed and did a little bit ago. So you can find a location, make appointments, and find a doctor. So we're going to go find a doctor. Now, these guys happen to be in a care group. So if you want to come in and find, they've got, I remember when I was working on this, I did all the SEO for their website at one point. And at the time, I think it was about 1,097 doctors, something like that. It was quite a big number. And they're all over the place, right? You can see here I am in Austin, and that's my location. So we had a GeoIP lookup. So it automatically puts me in here by default and sets that. So as I come in here and see the results, I can see how far these doctors are away from me. So very convenient when I'm looking, find a doctor I like, and then find out they're 973 miles away, right? So one of the things we did is we defaulted a lot of information. So I can put in my location. They've got different facilities, right? So I can pick which of the different facilities that I want. So all facilities. Is it going to be someone within the NCH medical group or a doctor who has rights to operate at one of their facilities, right? And you can see here, we've decorated the tile. If they're within the NCH medical group, we've added an additional logo right down here within the tile to show that they're within the NCH medical group. And then specialties, that's a big one, right? So we've got a counter. You can see there's many, many, many doctors, right? Tons and tons and tons of categories. So I could come in here and go, yeah, I don't even know how to, neonatology, whatever that is, obviously with babies, right? So here's a bunch of them. and I found some. Um, Male or female? Does it accept allied health or not? What insurances does it find within this group? And if I still need additional help, then I can contact them, right? So this was a little more complex of a search, where then you can drill down, pop in, see a bigger picture of them, find out a little more information about them, their experience, their education, the facilities that they operate at. Maybe they operate at multiple facilities, and then information about exactly where they are. And then you can pin and map that location. Obviously, you can print, email, download, whatever you want to do. So this is a little bit more user friendly, a little bit larger organization. Made the tiles a little more user friendly, put in a nice directory for all of the providers. This is a service that NCH offers for every provider that signs up and becomes a part of their organization, and they get brought into this directory and added in so they can get patients. Anything that you wanted to talk about with regards to cost, complexity, effort to do something like this?
Yeah, I would say in general, this sort of falls under the same category of being heavily commoditized. The only sort of general note I would say here is that you can see there's a decent amount of consideration around the UI and the UX, kind of what the user is experiencing. It's not just a simple list view. There's a lot of thought put into how these pieces are playing together. And a lot of this is data collection to get all of that data and in a consistent format. There may be integration with an internal system, possibly an EMR, EHR system, or another back office system that's going to house this data, CRM, et cetera. And we're probably going to want to pump this in dynamically and sort of have like a source of truth that we determine within the organization. So we're not having to update in multiple locations. To the extent that that's the case, that's at least something you may want to consider is how are you going to keep this up to date? So that would be one thing I would point out. The other thing in general that I would say is what you're seeing here, I think, is Ron's progressing from a sort of standard off-the-shelf commoditized to more customized with more filtering and logic, is this idea of what is the progression that you might want to go through with your business.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Just want to take a quick break and remind you we've got some free technical resources for you linked down in the description. Thanks for watching again. Let's get back to the video.
Because you're almost seeing here, in the flesh, examples of kind of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, right. Or as you like to say, Ron, crawl, walk, run. And we really encourage clients to get validation that something is useful at its base level, and then progress that functionality to more complex based on feedback from the end user. So that can be really helpful to consider as well. But yeah, I would say the big thing here is probably the data, getting accurate data and keeping the data up to date. And there is a little bit of consideration around the UI UX. One of the things that's really helpful for that is you can look at competitors or other industries that might have a similar workflow and sort of decide what you like from their workflow. That's a great way to communicate to a development team that you're working with, a design team. Hey, I want this part to be like this site. I want this little map to be like this website's map. And if you can just prescriptively take those pieces and share that, that can be helpful too. So back over to you, Ron, with that.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right. So crawl, walk, run. Let's run. So this is the last one.
Let's do it.
Now, this one is a mobile app, and I can't show my phone on my screen now. So what I did was I have a nice little video that I've recorded. This is an app that we designed for a client. It's a mobile app for our patients that allows them to go in. They can book appointments. They can refill their meds. Down here, they can go to their prescriptions, request refills. Find a doctor is one of the things that they can do, and that's what we're talking about today. So what I wanted to show you on this one is we took the find a doctor to the nth degree, where not only can they find the doctor, they can do a lot more activities once they find the doctor. So as we scroll forward, here's some of the appointments they can cancel and see all their upcoming appointments, prescriptions, refills, all that. Then we come into the find a doctor. So now you can see here, I can go in and I can search doctors. And once I find a doctor, I can initiate a video chat, or I can initiate. So this is for our telehealth sessions. If the doctor that they locate offers that, and or initiate just a call session to that office, right? If they go in to look for the doctors, they can come in here and find more information. So once they go in and find a doctor, and there's different search things that we had on that first screen, they find the doctor, they have more information, they can read more and see more information about the practice. Then they can come down and see the specialties, the reason for the visit. So there's information they can put in about the reason for the visit. And then the great thing about this is this one happened to be integrated, if I remember correctly, it was eClinicalWorks, right? So our client, I think they were down in Houston, their organization used eClinicalWorks on the back end as their EMR. So this application was integrated with eClinicalWorks. So once they picked a doctor, these were the actual live available appointments from the doctor's calendar in eClinicalWorks. And when they selected and booked that time and added it to their phone with the reminders and everything, it also, our integration went into eClinicalWorks and actually booked that appointment for that patient. So this one, the find a doctor, not only did we do the integration, they can find the doctor, get information about the doctor. It's not as much about finding the doctor, it's when can I get into a doctor? So I'm looking for a specific doctor for a specific reason, and I need to find an appointment. And it's 3:00 in the morning and I want to schedule an appointment, and I know I can't get a hold of anybody, and I don't even know which doctor I'm going to call yet. How long would it take you getting up in the morning to research and find 15 potential different doctors, get their phone numbers, try to call the office, get through to somebody, and then try to find an available time frame? All right. Well, with this mobile app, I could literally sit there in bed going, my knee still bothers me. I need to get into an orthopedic surgeon. I need to get an MRI. I got to get it checked out. Great. I can just sit here and do a little bit of research, poke around, find a bunch of different doctors, and then I can actually see, without calling anybody, at 3 a.m., all of the availability for all of those doctors that I like. And then I can turn around and book that appointment if I want. Or if it's during the day and I find one that I like, I can go back out and I can initiate a call right to the office by clicking phone call and call the office. So this one, obviously, the find a doctor was a small part of the application. I mean, the application also, if I go forward a little bit, you can come in and go in and see all my lab results, all my vitals, all my billing. Here's all the results from every lab I've ever taken. I can go in and see all of my statistics from every appointment I've ever gone in. I can see all my bills, ones that I've paid, ones that I haven't paid. I can actually go in and see the details, pay the invoice, things like that, right? So there's a lot more to it than just that. But the find a doctor is a very significant part of this mobile app, because it allows people to engage, find the doctor, schedule the appointments, be proactively notified of the appointments, cancel the appointments, initiate the phone calls and the telehealth sessions with the doctor's office. So it gives a lot more engagement than just the find, where NCH really focused on the find. This one focused on the find and act, which I would say is a little bit more of the run, because now we're taking the UI elements and we're really going into the UX and augmenting the user's experience. So was there anything you wanted to add or tack on with this one with regards to cost, complexity, or any other comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, I would just say thank you for the overview with the crawl, walk, run. I think this is really helpful for folks to get a flavor of what that would look like. And the general output that we would encourage you to see here is that basically, whenever you're doing something, you want to look at the design and the architecture in a way that it can be expandable beyond the sort of consumption interface that you're starting with. So for example, if we're starting with a simple locator on a website, let's make sure that the architecture is such that eventually in 2 to 3 years, whenever we scale up that usage and the business continues to grow, we can expand to a mobile application. We can integrate to an internal EMR, EHR, or CRM system, and we can keep scaling it up. Let's make sure that it's architected so that we decide, well, this is just going to be a phase that we just throw away if we're not going to architect for the long term. And you kind of have to decide that at each phase, right, Ron? It's kind of one of those things. There's a cost benefit analysis. But I would say generally, once you get to this sort of walk and run phase, especially where you're looking at like a mobile app or a complex, sophisticated locator, that's where you're going to want to really get into the weeds on the architecture and look at the ability to extend it and maintain it for the long term, and really ask some of those sort of deep foundational questions of what programming language is this built on? What's the architecture? Can it actually work across different devices? And what's the security like? How is this going to work with integrations? And so the list goes on. These are really foundational pieces that will affect the cost, the maintenance, and the scalability performance of your application well into the future, right?
Yeah. And I think a big one, you've mentioned it a couple of times, but we really didn't focus on it. And maybe we'll close on this, is the maintenance, right? Do we really think that, let's say for NCH organization, do we really feel that 1,000 different doctors' offices are going to remember to go to the website and update every piece of information about the doctor or healthcare provider that is in this directory, right? Because that's really what we're talking about. So you'd mentioned a little bit about how are you going to keep the data up to date. So for some of these, we created an administrative UI where there is a person at NCH that when they onboard each of these doctors, it's their responsibility to make sure to get the required information for the directory. When they get that information for the directory, they enter it. And then it's the doctor's office's responsibility to just notify them if there are any typos or any data to be updated. So it might be a distributed administrative interface. It might be a centralized administrative interface. This last one that we just showed, we said there is no interface. We're literally going to go in and attach to, in this case, the ClinicalWorks EMR, where the doctors, all the doctors' appointments are scheduled and are maintained, and we'll go just access the live data and keep it update ourselves. And that's where all the information is for doctor billing and everything else. So their contact information, everything that's in the EMR is accessible in this profile. And so anytime anybody at the hospital updates any information about a healthcare provider, it automatically gets updated in our app. And so a lot of that is automated, right? Which is more expensive and more complex, but much more accurate and much easier to maintain going forward, especially if you have 500, 1,000, 2, 3, 5,000 healthcare providers, right? Much easier for the ongoing maintenance. So anything else you wanted to close off, Chris?
I would just say thanks for listening. And generally speaking, we always want to welcome you to feel free to reach out to our team if you have any questions or you would like information like this that's specifically catered to your situation and your vision for where you're going with your organization and maybe a similar application. And with that said, thanks everyone again. And thanks, Ron, as well.
Thanks, Chris. All right, everyone. Thanks again for listening in. Bye for now.
Bye for now.